The stars looked different from the observation deck of the _Harmony_. Captain Jack Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the massive Myriad Collective mothership approached. His heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. This was humanity's big moment. First official contact with the galactic community. "Captain, they're ready for us," said Tom, his second in command. "The shuttle is prepared." Jack nodded. Time to show them what humans are made of. The shuttle ride was smooth, almost too smooth. Jack and his small team of 5 representatives from Earth sat quietly as they approached the alien vessel. Dr. Elena Roberts, their chief scientist, kept checking her instruments. The soldier, Mike, kept his hand near the weapon he wasn't supposed to bring. The diplomats, Ben and Lisa, reviewed their notes one last time. "Remember," Jack said to his team, "we're guests here, but we're also equals." The docking was perfect. When the doors opened, Jack took a deep breath and stepped forward into history. The alien greeting chamber was huge, with a ceiling that seemed to vanish into darkness above. Creatures of all shapes stood in a half-circle, some tall and thin, others short and wide. Some had too many limbs, others too few. But all eyes, or what passed for eyes, were on the humans. A blue-skinned alien with 4 arms stepped forward. "Welcome to the Myriad Collective. I am Cole, Chief Ambassador." Its voice came through the translation devices clipped to the humans' ears. "We have waited long to meet the species that sends such interesting radio signals into space." Jack smiled and bowed slightly. "On behalf of Earth and all humans, we thank you for this invitation. We have much to learn from each other." The next hours were a blur of introductions. 27 species made up the collective. Some were friendly, others merely curious. But Jack noticed how some looked at the humans with what seemed like pity. It was during the tour of the ship that Jack first noticed the Velthri. They stood apart from the others, slim, purple-skinned beings with strange patterns that seemed to move across their bodies. Other aliens kept their distance. "And who are they?" Jack asked Cole. Cole's voice dropped lower. "The Velthri, masters of biochemistry. They joined the collective 300 years ago, and quickly became important." "They don't seem very friendly," Jack observed. "They believe most species are beneath them," Cole said carefully. "Especially new ones." Later, at the welcome feast, Jack found himself seated near a Velthri. Up close, the patterns on its skin were even more fascinating, swirling designs that changed color slightly as it moved. "I am Nex," the Velthri said without looking at Jack. "Lead biochemical advisor to the collective. Captain Jack Miller of Earth. Pleased to meet you." Nex turned slowly, its large eyes focusing on Jack. "Your species is very basic. Simple carbon structures, so easily damaged. We have seen many like you come and go." Jack kept his smile in place. "We're tougher than we look." "Are you?" Nex said, a strange sound like laughter coming from its throat. "Perhaps. But remember, Captain, in this galaxy, physical strength means little. The true power lies in adaptation, in survival." Across the room, Jack noticed other aliens watching this exchange. Some looked worried. "We humans know something about survival," Jack said. "Our planet tried to kill us many times. We're still there." Nex's patterns darkened. "Interesting. Well, Captain, I look forward to seeing how your fragile species handles the challenges of galactic politics." As Nex moved away, Elena leaned toward Jack. "I don't think we made a friend there." "No," Jack agreed, watching as other aliens stepped aside to let Nex pass. "But I think we just met the real power in the room." That night, as the human delegation returned to their ship, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they had walked into something bigger than a simple diplomatic meeting. The way the other species feared the Velthri, the way Nex had dismissed humans so easily, something wasn't right. "What do we know about the Velthri?" he asked Elena as they walked. "Not much in the files," she said. but I heard someone call them the poisoners when they thought I couldn't hear. Jack nodded slowly. Keep your eyes open. First contact just got more interesting. 3 days into the diplomatic mission, tensions were growing. The human delegation sat at the massive round table in the collective's main conference room. Captain Jack Miller tried to keep his face neutral as he listened to the Velthri ambassador, Nex, speak against Earth joining the collective. Humans are too new, too untested, Nex said, its skin patterns shifting to deep red colors. They have not proven they can contribute anything of value to our alliance. Jack caught the eyes of Cole, the blue four-armed ambassador who had been friendly since their arrival. Cole gave a small gesture that Jack took to mean patience. When the formal meeting ended, the delegates moved to a large observation hall for the evening reception. The walls were transparent, showing the stars and Earth hanging in the distance like a blue jewel. Your planet looks so fragile from here, Nex said, suddenly appearing beside Jack. Much like its people. Jack took a sip from his drink. Appearances can be deceiving. Indeed, Nex replied. Though in my 300 years serving the collective, I found most species to be exactly as vulnerable as they appear. More aliens gathered around them, sensing the growing tension. Elena moved closer to Jack, giving him a warning look. The Velthri have mastered many arts, Nex continued, addressing the growing crowd rather than Jack. But none so completely as biochemistry. Our poisons are legendary. Is that something to be proud of? Jack asked, creating things that kill. Nex's pattern swirled faster. Our compounds do more than kill, human. They can heal, transform, or end life in precisely calculated ways. It is an art form your simple species could never understand. The room had grown quiet. Jack noticed that several alien diplomats were watching nervously. We've had our share of poisons on Earth, Jack said calmly. Plants, animals, even bacteria that can kill with a touch. Humans have learned to survive them all. Nex made a sound like quiet laughter. Nothing you have encountered would compare to what we can create. Our masterpiece, what we call Midnight Veil, has never been survived by any species in the collective. One drop ends life in minutes. Every poison has its limits, Jack said, and every species its strengths. The patterns on Nex's skin suddenly became very still. Are you suggesting, it said slowly, that humans might survive what no other species could? Jack hadn't meant to suggest exactly that, but he didn't back down. I'm saying you shouldn't underestimate us. A bold claim, Nex said. Perhaps it should be tested. The aliens around them made sounds of surprise. Cole stepped forward. Nex, this is not the place for such talk. Why not? Nex asked. If humans wish to join our collective as equals, should they not demonstrate their worthiness? All major species have passed tests of compatibility. Jack felt Elena's hand on his arm, squeezing in warning. What kind of test? He asked, ignoring her. Nex's patterns formed perfect circles, which Jack would later learn meant satisfaction. A simple demonstration. One human volunteer consumes a measured amount of Midnight Veil. If they survive, we will support Earth's full membership in the collective. And if they don't? Elena asked sharply. Then Earth remains in observer status for 50 years before applying again, Nex answered. A fair exchange. Cole moved closer. Captain Miller, this is not required. The Velthri do not speak for all of us. But Jack saw how the other aliens were watching. He understood politics well enough to know what was happening. The Velthri were using this to establish dominance, to keep humans in a lower position. I need to discuss this with my team and Earth Command, Jack said carefully. Of course, Nex replied. Take all the time you need. But remember, Captain, claims must be backed by action, or they are just empty words. As the reception continued, Jack moved away with his team. You can't be considering this, Elena whispered furiously. They're baiting you. I know, Jack said, looking back at the Velthri, who were now speaking with other aliens. But did you see how everyone reacted? The Velthri run this place through fear. If we back down now, we'll never be seen as equals. And if you die? Tom asked bluntly. Jack looked out at Earth, shining in the distance. Then we'll have learned something important about the collective, he said quietly, and about the Velthri. The message from Earth Command came 12 hours later. Challenge declined. Return to diplomatic protocols. Jack read it twice, then looked up at his team gathered in the _Harmonies meeting room. They're making a mistake. They're trying to keep you alive, Elena said. She pushed her tablet forward. I've been researching the Velthri. Other species fear them for good reason. Their poisons have ended wars, toppled governments, and eliminated entire species that oppose them. And that's exactly why we can't back down, Jack argued. If Earth shows weakness now, we'll always be seen as easy targets. Tom shook his head. The orders are clear, Captain. Jack stood up and walked to the viewport. The collective mothership hung in space, massive and alien. Somewhere inside, the Velthri were probably laughing at the humans' fear. What if, Jack said slowly, I could survive their poison? Everyone started talking at once, but Elena's voice cut through. That's suicide, Jack. Maybe not. He turned back to them. Think about Earth's history. Humans have lived alongside thousands of poisonous plants and animals. Our bodies evolved to handle toxins better than most species. This isn't some snake venom, Mike said. They called it their masterpiece. I'm not saying it would be easy, Jack admitted. But if I trained, built up my resistance to other poisons first. Elena was already shaking her head. You can't just become immune to all poisons. Not all, Jack agreed. But maybe I can strengthen my body's natural defenses enough to survive this one. For the next 3 days, Jack locked himself in his quarters, officially considering Earth's response. In reality, he was studying everything in the ship's database about poison resistance. He read about poison eaters on Earth, animals that consumed toxic plants and insects without harm. He learned about people who had survived normally lethal doses of toxins. On the 4th day, he called Elena to his quarters. I need your help, he said when she arrived. She crossed her arms. To disobey direct orders. To save Earth's reputation, Jack corrected. Look at these. He showed her the research he'd compiled. Humans have something special. Our liver enzymes are more adaptable than most species. Our gut bacteria can break down compounds that would kill others. Jack. I've already started, he said, rolling up his sleeve to show the small injection marks. Small doses of various Earth toxins to stimulate my liver. Elena looked horrified. You could have killed yourself. But I didn't, Jack said. And my blood tests show increased enzyme production already. Elena sat down heavily. You're really doing this. I need a doctor I trust to monitor me, Jack said. And to help me understand exactly what this midnight veil might be. Against her better judgment, Elena began to help. She used her access to the collective's biological database to learn more about the Velthri poison, while keeping Jack's condition stable as he continued his self-treatments. A week later, they received an unexpected visitor. Cole, the blue four-armed ambassador, requested a private meeting with Jack. The Velthri are growing impatient, Cole said once they were alone. They're suggesting to the other species that humans are cowards. Tell them I'm still considering their challenge, Jack replied. Cole's 4 hands made a complicated gesture. Captain, I came to warn you. The Velthri never expected you to accept. The challenge was meant to be impossible, to keep humans in a lower position. What happens if I surprise them and accept? Jack asked. They would have to honor their word, Cole said. But Captain, no species has ever survived Midnight Veil. It doesn't just kill, it unmakes living things at the cellular level. Jack nodded slowly. Thank you for the warning. When Cole left, Jack called his team together again. I've made my decision, he told them. I'm accepting the challenge. Earth Command will remove you from command, Tom warned. Probably, Jack agreed. But by then, it will be too late to stop me. Why are you so determined to do this? Elena asked. Jack's face was serious. Because sometimes you have to risk one life to save many. The Velthri use fear to control the collective. If humans ever want to be real partners out here, someone has to stand up to them. He looked at each team member in turn. I need to know, are you with me? One by one, reluctantly, they nodded. The neutral space station orbiting Jupiter gleamed like a silver ring against the massive planet's swirling clouds. Inside the main observation dome, representatives from all 27 species of the Myriad Collective gathered in a circle. At the center stood two figures, Captain Jack Miller and the Velthri ambassador Nex. "This is madness," whispered a message from Earth Command that Jack had deleted without responding. It was too late now. News of the challenge had spread throughout the collective, and backing out would confirm everything the Velthri had said about human weakness. Jack stood tall, dressed in his formal uniform. 2 weeks of intensive preparation had left him tired but determined. His body had been pushed to its limits with carefully controlled toxin exposure. Elena had monitored his liver enzymes, adjusted his diet, and even introduced beneficial bacteria to his gut. It was the best they could do with limited time. "Captain Miller," Nex said, its voice carrying through the large chamber, "you surprise us by accepting our challenge. Most species show better survival instincts." Some aliens in the crowd made sounds that might have been laughter. Others looked uncomfortable or concerned. "Where I come from," Jack replied, "we face our challenges head-on." Nex's skin pattern swirled in complex patterns. "Very well. The terms are simple. You will consume a measured amount of Midnight Veil. If you survive for 24 Earth hours, humans will be granted full membership in the collective with our support." Cole stepped forward. "As the neutral observer, I must verify that the poison is genuine and the amount is standard." Nex gestured to a small case carried by another Velthri. The case was open to reveal a small vial of liquid so dark it seemed to absorb the light around it. "Midnight Veil," Nex announced. "Our finest achievement." Cole examined the vial carefully, using a scanner that hummed softly. After a moment, he nodded. "It is authentic and the standard testing amount." Elena, standing at the edge of the circle, looked pale but gave Jack a small nod. They had discussed this moment for days, reviewing every possible defense his body might use against the poison. "Your final chance to withdraw, Captain," Nex said, clearly expecting Jack to back down. Jack stepped forward. "Pour it." A murmur went through the watching aliens. Even Nex seemed surprised, its skin patterns momentarily freezing. The liquid was poured into a clear cup. It moved strangely, almost like it was alive, swirling without being stirred. Jack took the cup. He looked around the circle at the alien faces watching him. Some curious, some fearful, some hoping for his failure. Then he looked at his own team. Elena with her medical kit ready. Tom standing at attention, respecting Jack's choice even though he disagreed with it. Mike with his hand near his weapon, still watching for tricks. "To Earth," Jack said simply, and drank the poison in one swallow. It tasted like nothing at first, then like everything at once. Bitter, sweet, burning, freezing. Jack forced himself to stand straight as the liquid went down his throat. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The aliens watched in silence. Then the pain hit. It started in his stomach and exploded outward, like his blood had turned to fire. Jack gasped, dropping to one knee. His vision blurred, the faces around him becoming smeared colors. As expected, he heard Nex say, its voice sounding distant, "The human systems are already failing." Jack tried to stand but couldn't. His muscles weren't responding properly. Distantly, he heard Elena shouting, felt hands grabbing him as he fell forward. The last thing Jack saw before darkness took him was Nex's face, its skin patterns forming what looked like a smile. "The test has begun," Call announced formally. "Captain Miller will be monitored for 24 Earth hours." But most aliens were already leaving. They had seen this before with other species. None had lasted more than an hour against Midnight Vale. Alina and the human team rushed Jack to the medical bay they had prepared. Machines beeped as they connected him to monitors. His heartbeat was erratic, his breathing shallow. "Fight it, Jack," Alina whispered as she worked. "Remember what we talked about. Your body knows what to do." Outside the medical bay, Nex spoke to a group of other species. A brave but foolish gesture. Humans will now understand their proper place in the galaxy. None of the aliens noticed Cole quietly entering the medical bay, closing the door behind him. 6 hours passed since Jack drank the poison. The medical bay was quiet except for the steady beep of machines monitoring his condition. Alina hadn't left his side, constantly checking readings and adjusting treatments. Tom and Mike stood guard at the door, keeping curious aliens away. "His vital signs shouldn't be this stable," Alina muttered, reviewing the data for the 100th time. Every other species was dead by now. Jack lay unconscious, his face pale but peaceful. Occasionally his body would twitch, fighting an invisible battle within. A soft knock at the door made them all jump. Tom opened it slightly to reveal Cole standing outside. "How is he?" the blue alien asked quietly. "Alive," Alina answered, surprised to see the ambassador. "That's more than anyone expected, right?" Cole entered the room, all 4 eyes focused on Jack. "The Velthri are becoming concerned. They're demanding to see him." "No way," Mike said firmly. "They'd probably finish the job." "I agree," Cole said, surprising them. "That's why I came to warn you. There's something you should know about Midnight Vale." Alina looked up sharply. "What?" "It doesn't just poison the body," Cole explained. "It attacks life at its most basic level, breaking down the tiny machines inside cells." "Mitochondria," Alina said, suddenly understanding. "It targets mitochondrial function." "Yes," Cole agreed. "But your captain still lives. How is this possible?" Alina moved to a microscope where she'd been examining Jack's blood samples. "Look at this," she said, moving aside so Cole could see. The alien peered into the microscope, then made a startled sound. "The poison molecules are breaking down." "How?" "Human gut bacteria," Alina explained with growing excitement. "We evolved alongside thousands of plants that try to poison us. Our digestive systems contain bacteria that can break down toxins other species can't handle." She quickly pulled up more data on her tablet. "And look at his liver function. It's working overtime, but it's processing the poison components after the bacteria break them down." "Remarkable," Cole said softly. "No other species in the collective has this adaptation." "That's because Earth is special," Tom said. "Our planet has more biodiversity, more different types of life, than most worlds. We've been dealing with natural poisons for our entire evolution." At that moment, one of the monitors beeped loudly. Jack's heartbeat had changed. "What's happening?" Mike asked, moving closer. Alina checked the readings, her eyes widening. "His body is adapting. The poison molecules are being broken down, but some are being repurposed." "Repurposed?" Cole asked in confusion. "His immune system is learning from the poison," Alina explained, barely believing what she was seeing. "It's like nothing I've studied before." 12 hours passed. Word spread through the space station that the human was still alive. Aliens began gathering outside the medical bay, whispering among themselves. The Velthri delegates paced nervously, their skin patterns chaotic. Inside, Alina continued her analysis. "The poison is almost completely broken down now. His body is actually incorporating some components into his cells, making them stronger." "Will he wake up?" Tom asked. "I think so," Alina said cautiously. "His brain activity is increasing." 20 hours after drinking Midnight Vale, Jack Miller opened his eyes. "Did I miss anything?" he asked, his voice rough but clear. Alina laughed with relief, tears in her eyes. "Just made history, that's all. How do you feel?" Jack considered this, taking stock of his body. "Different. Stronger," somehow. The poison changed you, Elena explained. Your body didn't just survive it, it used it. Cole, who had stayed to witness this miracle, stepped forward. Captain Miller, the collective must know. May I announce your recovery? Jack slowly sat up, ignoring Elena's protests. No, he said. I want to show them myself. At the 24-hour mark, the doors to the medical bay opened. Jack Miller walked out under his own power, still pale, but very much alive. The gathered aliens fell silent in shock. Nex pushed to the front of the crowd, its skin patterns frozen in disbelief. Impossible, the Velthri ambassador hissed. Jack looked directly at Nex and smiled. You should be more careful what you boast about, Ambassador. Humans are full of surprises. The main chamber of the space station was packed with aliens from every species in the collective. News of Jack's survival had spread quickly, causing a sensation throughout the diplomatic community. At the center of the room stood a large circular table where the Council of Representatives gathered for emergency meetings. Jack sat at this table now, still feeling the strange new energy flowing through his body. Elena sat beside him, along with Tom and Mike. Across from them, the Velthri delegation looked distinctly uncomfortable, their skin patterns moving in agitated waves. Cole, acting as meeting chair, called for order. This gathering will now begin. We face an unprecedented situation. For the first time in recorded history, a being has survived exposure to Midnight Veil. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The terms of the challenge were clear. Cole continued. With Captain Miller's survival, Earth has earned the right to full membership in the Myriad Collective, with Velthri support. Nex rose to its feet. We acknowledge the humans' unexpected resilience. But before finalizing such an important decision, we demand to know how this was possible. What trickery was used? Jack smiled slightly. No tricks, Ambassador. Just human biology. Elena activated the large display in the center of the table. Images of cells and bacteria appeared, rotating slowly for all to see. What you're seeing is Captain Miller's digestive system, Elena explained. Humans evolved on a planet with extreme biodiversity, millions of species, many producing toxins as defense mechanisms. She changed the display to show Earth's varied ecosystems. Our ancestors ate plants containing mild poisons, building resistance over generations. Our bodies developed special defenses. That doesn't explain surviving Midnight Veil, a Velthri scientist objected. It attacks fundamental cellular structures. You're right, Elena agreed, surprising everyone. And that's the most interesting part. She displayed a new image. Microscopic pictures of Jack's blood before and after exposure to the poison. The bacteria in Jack's gut began breaking down the poison compounds. His liver then processed these broken compounds. But something else happened that we didn't expect. The display showed a time lapse of cells fighting the poison, then actually incorporating parts of it. Earth life evolved through competition and cooperation, Elena continued. When threatened, human cells don't just defend, they adapt. Captain Miller's body learned from the poison, using some components to strengthen itself. The chamber was completely silent now. In other words, Jack said, the very thing designed to kill me made me stronger instead. Nex stared at the display, its skin patterns now completely still. This is unprecedented. In 3,000 years of Velthri biochemistry, we've never seen this response. Perhaps, Cole suggested carefully, this explains why humans were able to advance so quickly on their world. Their adaptive capabilities seem extraordinary. Another alien, a reptilian being Jack hadn't met before, spoke up. If humans can resist Velthri toxins, this changes the balance of power in the collective. Nervous whispers spread through the crowd. Jack understood the implications. The Velthri had used their poisons to control and intimidate other species for centuries. A species immune to their greatest weapon threatened their position. We didn't come here to disrupt your politics, Jack said firmly. Earth seeks peaceful cooperation, not domination. We have much to learn from all of you, and perhaps something to teach as well. What exactly? Nex asked, its voice now curious rather than hostile. Adaptation, Jack replied. On Earth, species survive not by being the strongest or most dangerous, but by changing to meet new challenges, by working together when necessary. Elena added, Captain Miller's survival shows what's possible when different biological systems cooperate. The bacteria in his gut, his liver enzymes, his immune cells, they all work together to overcome a threat none could handle alone. Cole's 4 arms made a gesture of understanding, perhaps a lesson for the collective itself. Nex was silent for a long moment, its skin pattern slowly shifting to a new configuration that none of the humans had seen before. We will honor our agreement, the Velthri ambassador finally said. Earth has earned its place. And I would like to propose a new research initiative. Human biology clearly has much to teach us. Jack extended his hand across the table, a human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Nex reached out and took it. To new understandings, Jack said. And new possibilities, Nex replied. 1 month after the challenge, the Earth delegation returned home as heroes. The _Harmony_ approached Earth orbit with an escort of 3 collective ships, a sign of respect never before given to a newly joined species. On the observation deck, Jack Miller stood in his new uniform. The left shoulder now bore the emblem of the Myriad Collective alongside Earth's flag. The right shoulder displayed a unique symbol, a vial with a broken chain, marking him as the first Veilbreaker. Still getting used to the title? Elena asked, joining him at the viewport. Jack smiled. It sounds a bit dramatic. You earned it, she said. The collective needed someone to challenge the Velthri's power. You changed everything. Below them, Earth shone blue and green. Already, the first alien embassies were being established in major cities. Earth's rapid acceptance into the collective had broken all previous records. You got another message from the Velthri science team, Elena said, handing him a tablet. They're still amazed by your follow-up tests. The poison components your body absorbed have fully integrated now. Jack scrolled through the report. After surviving Midnight Vale, his body had continued to change. His cellular structure was now partially resistant to a wide range of toxins, not just the Velthri poison. How are the other volunteers doing? He asked. The first 20 test subjects are showing similar results, Elena replied. Not as strong as yours, but the treatment is working. By exposing them to small, controlled amounts of modified Velthri compounds, they're developing the same resistance. And the Velthri are cooperating fully. Elena nodded. They're keeping their word. I think they've realized that working with us is better than fearing us. The ship's communication system chimed. Captain Miller, Tom's voice announced, Earth Command is requesting your presence at the landing ceremony. And there's a message from the President. On my way, Jack replied. As they walked through the ship, crew members stopped to salute. Jack had become more than a captain now. He was a symbol of humanity's place among the stars. The President wants to establish a new division, Jack told Elena as they walked. The Biological Ambassadors Court. Humans specially trained and treated to interact with species previously considered too dangerous to meet directly. Let me guess, Elena said with a smile. You've been offered command. Us, Jack corrected. They want you as Chief Medical Officer. Your research on how humans adapted to the poison is changing xenobiology textbooks across the collective. They entered the shuttle bay where the landing team was assembling. Through the open bay doors, Jack could see the sprawling collective welcome center that had been built in record time. Thousands of people had gathered to witness the historic landing. Captain, Cole said, approaching them. The blue alien diplomat had become a close ally. I bring news from the Collective Council. The Velthri have formally requested a permanent research exchange with Earth. That's unexpected, Jack said. Not really, Cole replied. You've shown them something they've never seen before, a species that turns weakness into strength. They're fascinated. And a little worried, Elena added quietly. Cole's 4 arms made a gesture of agreement. Yes, for 3 centuries, they were the most feared species in the collective. Now they must adapt to a new reality. Just like we all must, Jack said. Space is bigger and stranger than we imagined. We'll need every advantage to thrive out there. The shuttle's boarding call sounded. As Jack prepared to lead his team down to Earth, he took one last look at the stars beyond the bay doors. Out there were countless worlds, species, and challenges that humans had yet to face. Ready for whatever comes next? Elena asked, seeing his thoughtful expression. Jack nodded. That's what humans do best. We adapt. As the shuttle launched toward Earth, news broadcasts across the planet announced the same headline. Earth joins galactic community as full member. Smaller headlines noted, Veltri ambassadors propose joint medical research and Captain Miller to lead new diplomatic courts. What none of the headlines mentioned was the quiet conversation happening on ships throughout the collective fleet. Alien species that had lived under Veltri influence for generations were beginning to see humans not just as newcomers, but as potential allies in a changing galaxy. The age of human isolation was over. The age of adaptation had begun.